Welcome to Sports from the Couch.
I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
With your host, Mike Mercado.
Players cannot stand him. Coaches cannot stand him. Most importantly, the fans can't stand him.
Brought to you by Mercado Airwaves.
I'm gonna say it once, and hopefully I'm wrong, but it's a disaster waiting to happen.
That is so bad, that is absolutely brutal.
Hello and welcome into a special edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and it is time to preview the 2020-2021 Chicago Bulls. But before we get into all that, let's take care of some housekeeping notes. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike and Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media, and the show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and shares wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. You can become a producer of the show on Patreon. Patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, the home of our interviews with athletes and celebrities that you could get ad-free and before anybody else. That's Patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag, guys, at Teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, YouTube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Come play video games with us on Twitch, Twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves. And keep up to date with everything we're doing on the podcast network, from the True Crime Show, the Pop Culture Show, all our interviews, and everything in between. Follow us on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves.
Only the Bulls, only the Bulls, only the one and only Chicago Bulls.
Let's get into it, friends. It is almost tip-off time to start the regular season, the 2020-2021 campaign for your Chicago Bulls. And we appreciate you making us a part of your day as we get ready to break down this entire season. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys. I believe this team really is... I don't necessarily know if they're going to make a playoff run. We'll talk about all that in just a little bit. But I do find it somewhat enjoying because there seems to be a goal in mind. There seems to be something at the end of this tunnel. And everything that happened during the old regimes, whether they had a team that was 500 in the playoffs or completely a bottom feeder in the league, it never seemed interesting. It never seemed that there was ever this aspiration to win championships. It was to get by, to keep your job. There was a lot of that in the old regime with Gar Forman, John Paxson, Jim Boylan, so on and so forth, right? But now we're at this point. New season's about to begin. We have a lot of news to get into, so we'll break it down. I have some things that I feel we need to tackle before tip-off of this season for the Chicago Bulls at the United Center and around the NBA. First thing I want to talk about is individual development. See, because I think at the end of the day, this Bulls team is probably not a playoff team. Now, we know that in this season specifically, there's going to be a 7 through 10 playoff play-in for teams to make the playoffs. And that's going to be fun. That's going to make things interesting for certain teams. But for the Bulls, if you end up in that 10 spot, I think maybe you're having yourself a good season. Because at the end of it, this isn't a team that's going to win a championship. And ultimately, we know, and some of the things that we'll hit on today, they're not re-signing certain guys. They do see certain value and some not so valuable assets on this Bulls team when it comes to AK and Eversley. And this is a totally new regime. This is something that we need to take into consideration. When they got rid of that Hydra that was Paxson, Foreman, and Boylan, and they brought in AK and Eversley and Billy Donovan as the new head coach, we knew everything was on the table when it came to who's available, who's not, who has a chance to start, so on and so forth. The only person on this new regime, this new world that we're living in for the Chicago Bulls is Patrick Williams, and he's in the starting lineup now at small forward. So that's the way they're gonna get his minutes in. They're gonna find out at 19 years old if the comp of Baby Kawhi is real. I think that's horrible, and I think that's so irresponsible for people to be giving him that nickname. But if he ends up just being a career player, good for him, and this is the way you develop that. But this new regime coming in is not married to anybody. It's in every sport. It's when a new head coach comes in. It's when a new front office comes in. In the NFL, we see it all the time with quarterbacks and whatnot, that they're going to want to have their guys. They want to mold their clay into what they think is going to be a championship roster. So you need to see these guys develop. And we'll go down into the individuals, but first and foremost, individual development. This entire season, more than standings, more than wins and losses, it's situational and season-long development of each of these players in their game. Are they what they just are? Is Zach LaVine just that? Is Lauri Markkanen just that? Is Kobe, does he have a higher ceiling? What about Patrick Williams? I don't think he's going to be a bust. So you got that out of the way. How good can he be? What about Wendell? Can Wendell stay healthy? What happens to Otto Porter? There's a lot of things we'll get into. And then that kind of drives into the next point I want to get into, which is team development. Very important because while we're going to see a lot of these guys elsewhere in the NBA, I think over the next few years, I don't think a lot of these guys are destined to be Chicago Bulls and to be there to raise the 7th banner in the rafters at the United Center. I don't think so. So with that, when I say team development, I want to see how Kobe White does. Obviously, I want to see what Patrick Williams does. Actually, I really want to see, like we all do, the Lauri Markkanen and Zach LaVine thing. But I want to see what Billy Donovan puts into this team. The culture, the type of offense that he wants to run. What kind of identity does this team have? Because I'll ask you a question. I cover this team. I ranted about it for years. What was the identity of the Jim Boylan era? Other than dysfunction, what was the identity of that team on the court? It was just dysfunction. Seriously. So with team development, I want to see what this new regime, how ownership lets the front office do their thing, and what the front office does to help this coaching staff, and how this coaching staff develops talent, develops a culture, and gets you in a position where you might be able to make a run at a superstar 2 or 3 years down the road. That is so important. And you have to build a good reputation around the league that you didn't have for a long time, which it seems like they're doing. Now, one way that you could fast track all of this is by tanking. And I heard the amazing Rick Camp, who really awesome dude, really knowledgeable about the NBA and the Chicago Bulls, mentioning kind of like a stealth tanking, if you will. That a lot of these teams aren't going to just outright be tanking, but the Bulls have this opportunity to, like, for example, let Wendell Carter shoot 3-pointers. Why do you do that? Sure, you want to see if you can do it, but also it doesn't hurt if you lose more games than you win. Because again, we're always in this, in any walk of life, in any profession, to win the ultimate game, to win the ultimate moment, to be the best at your profession. But that's not day to day. That's the ultimate goal. These guys have a long-term plan, and it actually seems like they've mapped this out. And if you're a White Sox fan or a Cub fan or a Blackhawks fan, recently you've seen that, and it pays off. So if you're tanking, and we don't know what the college basketball season is going to look like, but if you're tanking to allow yourself to develop certain guys, to evaluate certain guys, and to be able to maneuver contracts around to give yourself more of a fresh, clean slate in the next offseason when we're on the other end of COVID-19, which is something we really need to take into consideration, that all this is happening during COVID-19. So tanking, very important to me in how we look at this Bulls team. Does it benefit them? Can they turn it around? Again, if this was the old regime, I would feel a little, I don't know. I don't even trust them. This new regime, I'm like, let's see what they got. We can see if they're going to strike out or hit a home run or get the guys across the bag if they don't take an at-bat. Shoot your shots, homie. So I think, why not? If you're telling me that they can be entertaining games, and I see development, and I see a overall arching plan, and I know that some guys are going to be moved, some guys are going to be here and are going to be stalwarts of this organization, I'm down with it. I don't care if it's a 30-win season, a 40-win season, a 20-win season. Make it entertaining. And just don't be boring. Don't be irrelevant. Develop a culture. Develop a reputation. Get some excitement like you have. I think that's what really important with the team development and the tanking. Being together and not being outright smacking you in the face like some organizations. I think the Bulls, talk about, here locally in Chicago with the Bears having a chance. They run the table, go 9-7. Things work out their way. They end up in the playoffs, the extended playoffs. Everything has to align in that way, and it might, because they had the easiest road there for all the other teams that are not in the playoffs. For the Bulls, it's almost the same thing. Everything has aligned itself where you could be an entertaining team. You can have goodwill, good vibes, and you can still lose. And it still helps your organization. So I think that's going to be a big thing that some fans are going to have to come to grips with and be okay with. But I think over time, as long as the games are entertaining and the team is fun, why not? Look at Atlanta. You think Atlanta fans care that they're losing games? Now when you have Trae Young and you have this idea that maybe one day we'll get lucky, we'll be one of the lucky teams. So I think that works out for the Bulls. Now, while you're saying that and you're seeing them lose games, I do want to see the defense get a little bit better. I do want to see, and this goes into the Zach LaVine conversation. Because Zach LaVine, you talk about one of the best pure scorers in the NBA, Zach LaVine. One of the most underrated scorers in the NBA, Zach LaVine. One of the most underrated athletic players in the NBA, Zach LaVine. Does that mean that he's going to win you an NBA championship? Let me ask you this. Is James Harden a better scorer than Zach LaVine? Is James Harden a better basketball player than Zach LaVine? How many NBA championships does James Harden have? Now, the greatness is legitimate, but this is a conversation that we're having of where is a guy's status? I would love nothing more than Zach LaVine get paid, stay on the Chicago Bulls, and be one of the reasons why they win an NBA title. I think this is just me, and obviously the dude is one of the top 25 players in the league. I mean, he's just a baller. He's a killer. But to me, I don't know if he's the alpha in a championship team. Not that he's not an alpha, but that he's not the big dog, the big shot, the atomic bomb of that series. Because I think the atomic bomb of a series allows a guy like Zach LaVine to go off for 35 points and win you an NBA Finals. You see what I'm saying? Like, there is a big difference. Was Ray Allen ever the best player in the NBA? Was Ray Allen ever the most athletic? No, the dude was a killer, though. Put him on his own team, if they never won a title or not, yeah, he could do everything in the league. Put him on a team, though, with some other alphas, where he's not necessarily the atomic bomb. He'll win you NBA championships. Zach LaVine, totally different comp when it comes to their type of style of play. But that's the idea. That's what Zach LaVine can be. Is he going to be that for the Chicago Bulls? I don't know. I think if that's the case, he's the third guy on the team. This maybe the second guy in a series on your team. What doesn't help, though, is then you have Lauri Markkanen, who I've always been a big fan of. I hate when people are doing this to Williams, and I hate that they did this to Lauri, calling him Baby Dirk. Yo, we got to let these kids come into the league and develop. They're playing against grown-ass men. Yo, I'm only 30, okay? And when I say that to some people, especially who have been in my industry for a long time, they're like, shut up, kid. And I get it. I get it now because I've been doing this for 10 years. When I heard myself at 22 talking about experience and whatnot and the pressure of it, you realize just how unprepared you are for the big stages. Imagine on the NBA. Lauri Markkanen's betting himself. We know now that he didn't sign that extension with the Bulls. It sounds like they were really far apart. We're talking about almost $4 million per year. And it's the Jimmy Butler effect where although Jimmy, and it seemed like Jimmy and the Bulls were a lot closer back a few years ago when that happened, Lauri's betting on himself. Good. Because I believe people are at their best when they want to prove something, when they're hungry for something. Does it always work out? No. Does it sometimes blow up in people's faces? Of course, that's anything in life. But I'd rather, be like, I'm going to show you all. And I'm going to make you pay me. If not, somebody else is down. Because that means it's real. It's there. Something has snapped for this guy who has all the tools. And bottom line, it's the same thing I said about the reason why I think this Bulls team has a chance to. If they're not going to be necessarily a playoff team, there's a chance that they can lose a lot of games, get a nice draft pick, be entertaining, and make guys money. It's because they have talent. It's not embarrassing. You know, you've seen in other sports, even the NBA, where there's some rosters where you're like, that's embarrassing. And it's not these dudes' fault. It's the front office and ownership that put these guys out there and especially expose these guys into situations they didn't ask to be. The Bulls have a true professional roster. And whether or not that's good enough to win any games, that's neither here nor there. They're respectable. So I want to see what Lauri Markkanen does with all that on the table. You got your chance. You're going to get your shots. It's time to step up. And Laurie not wanting to sign because he believes he's a max player, good on him. Now is the time to show it. And maybe he'll help out Zach LaVine. You got two dudes that got all the attributes. Laurie Marketing, he's going to have a 10-year career. You talk about Zach LaVine having an entire career, so is Laurie Marketing. That body, some coach is always going to be like, look at him. I could get the best out of him. And he's always going to make some decent cash. Will it be for this organization? He's got an opportunity now, and he showed everybody, I'm going to tell you all how down I am. Okay? I want to see it, and I'm rooting for it. Not only do I want to see dude get paid, but it helps the organization. It helps the city. It helps us here on Sports from the Couch on Mercado Airwaves to have fun and talk about this team. Laurie Marketing's growth is so important as a player for this organization. But don't get it twisted. AK and Eversley, that's not their guy. They didn't draft him. They haven't been invested in years in trying to develop him. They're going to go and see what's best for their long-term goal and what's going to keep them employed. Whether that means trading him mid-season, whether that means extending him, whether that means just moving on or matching an offer, sign and trade, whatever it may be. They're going to be the ones that have the most unbiased opinion when it comes to this whole scenario. It's not their guy. So Laurie has a clean slate then. Talk about clean slates for everybody. This is it. Find out. A group that didn't hire you. Because you're going to get paid around the league. Is it whether it's going to be with this organization or not? I don't think so. I think they are so far apart. And I wouldn't blame Laurie for wanting to have a new scenery. A new fresh start and to try, maybe go to the West Coast. Maybe find a organization that you feel fits you better. I hope it works out and him and LaVine find a way to sign here and that they find their superstar. I don't know how feasible that is because we know with COVID and everything that's going on with the salary cap not moving up the way it usually does, that people aren't going to get paid like they were, and there's not going to be as much of a leniency for money. So you need to have these guys develop so that you have more assets and more opportunities to do something. And speaking of assets, Otto Porter. You can follow me on twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves. We're playing NBA 2K21, and I have, I switched the rosters up so that I can have Otto Porter on the bench. And it is true. It's such a difference what a competent NBA pure scorer like an Otto Porter does for your bench, but not just that, what it does for your team. It's the Zach LaVine effect. It's like, dude just knows how to score. And I find it funny. I think Dan Patrick mentioned this years ago where it's, maybe he can't stop somebody. Maybe he can't play defense, but who's going to play defense on him? And Otto Porter is one of those guys where he'll never be an all-star, more than likely. He'll never be all-pro. He won't be in commercials, all this other, stuff, right? But he's going to be a dude who's going to be in the league for 12 years. He could drop 30 on you. He can make it a nightmare, and you're like, damn, Otto Porter for real? He's that kind of dude. So I'm interested in Otto Porter's situation where I don't necessarily need to see his growth or team development or individual development. I need to see what he brings to the table so that when they do trade him, and he does end up with the Lakers or the Clippers or the Bucks or wherever, how much value can you get back? That's the real question about Otto Porter. Can he stay healthy? And does he shine when the spotlight is on him, because he's going to be the guy they're going to go to a lot when I believe it's a blowout or when it's a bench heavy game. So can they get something from him? What can Otto Porter bring out of himself for this organization, not just to win games this season? I don't really think that matters. It's for him to make money even moving forward throughout the league, and to find a new home because he's going to have the new contract he's going to have to get. So I think Otto Porter is, again, talk about an underrated scorer, and I think a nice piece to have on your bench, especially if you're trying to develop your rookie. Have him as the starter in small forward, and then Otto Porter is just able to ball out, able to show himself out so that he could get a nice contract and get traded to maybe a team that's looking to make a little bit of a playoff run or one of those 7 through 10 teams. That's where I think Otto Porter ends up. I hope he stays healthy. I want to see him just be smooth and everything just be clicking on offense. I want them to make a move, and I want Otto Porter to get paid and make a playoff run on another organization, the Bulls, rack up some stock, and it helps the team moving forward. But yeah, that's where I think the only piece, because we could talk about Levine and Laurie and all these, and Wendell Carter, which, by the way, he's going under the radar in criticism. He's got to develop. I mean, we're talking about a guy that needs it's time. And I'm really high on Wendell Carter. But we're right now in a time where, yeah, we could talk about Laurie being traded and Zach LaVine. Like, it's always fun and whatever. Legitimately, Otto Porter is the guy that you think is the most ready right now, can help a team win, and is the easiest to make a move with. So that's why he's the only one that when it comes to individual development, team development, I'm more along the lines of, what's going to happen the first half of this season and what can we do with him? And I think Otto Porter is an awesome player, so shout out to him, and we'll see what ends up happening moving forward. And moving forward, this team looking for the draft. We talk about the stealth tanking. If you make a move for Otto Porter, you're obviously looking for the draft then. Can you make a move? If you're looking towards the draft, does that then mean you're making a move with Zach LaVine and Laurie Markkanen? How much value do you get for them? How much value do you find in the draft? Is it all about cap space and young players under contract? That's in every sport right now. How do you do that? Having a team that's a nice developed team from your draft and having money available when a distraught, big-time NBA superstar is ready to move to another city. That's what the Bulls are doing. And I think Bulls fans are so hyped because they see something fun happening, something cool happening, that they think it might lead to a playoff. I think, no, my friends. It's going to lead to fun games, some frustrating games. Maybe you end up in a tournament, but you're looking for the draft. You want assets. You want a bunch of young stars. And then you want to make a big-time trade when it's time for one of the top 5 players in the league. And you want to see this team raise that 7th banner. And that starts with the draft, because that's how the league is being made right now. That's the way it has its channeled its championship development. And I think this front office has everything it takes to make those right decisions. That's why, more than anything, I'm telling you, you're looking for individual and team development in that case. But all in all, what does that mean? We talked about we have to look for individual development. We're looking at team development, the stealth tanking, defense, Laurie and Levine's growth, Otto Porter's value and future, what it means if you are trying to move forward and you're struggling and your record isn't that good. Does it mean that you're going to trade these guys and try to get into the draft, get a lot of assets, a lot of picks? Well, it's simple. Depends on this team gets a hot start or not. They got about 20 games in the West Coast out of their first 37. We know how stacked the West is. I think this team is going to be really fun to watch. They're going to have a lot of dumb mistakes. There's going to be a lot of frustrating games. I trust Billy Donovan as a developer and as an NBA coach. I have in good faith that Eversley and AK have the potential to be a strong front office. And I've seen nothing from ownership this time around that tells me otherwise. I don't think that translates to 40 wins. I think this team has a good chance to make some noise when it comes to acknowledgement and name recognition. But I think at the end of it, they're going to miss the playoffs. I think some of these guys are going to be traded. And I think they're going to try to get themselves into a very high position in the NBA draft. But I don't think it's going to be disappointing. I don't think it's going to be boring. I don't think they're going to be irrelevant. I think this is a team where they're going to be a hard out. There's going to be a lot of close games. People are going to be like, they're on the come up, but they're going to be a team that ends up in the lottery. And I think they're still going to be a really fun team. And I think it's going to be a really fun first campaign for this new regime, this new team that is heading in the United Center for the Chicago Bulls with Eversley, with AK, Billy Donovan. We'll see if Laurie Markkanen can make everything come true that he has now put on himself by not signing this extension? Does he prove the Bulls wrong? Does he get super paid? Will Zach LaVine take that next step? What will the Bulls do when it comes to the development of Kobe White and Patrick Williams? We'll see what happens when Wendell Carter is now kind of on the clock. Otto Porter's future in the NBA, a true professional. Can he help a team win an NBA final moving forward? Can they get value for that? Can this team make a name for itself moving forward? Will they have an identity? That's what makes this season, this campaign for the Chicago Bulls so fun. Because all these questions mean that it's not just about, it's, John and Gar. They'll go after a few. They'll get Rajon Rondo and Dwayne Wade, and they'll get the 7th seed. That's not what this is. This is like Christmas, where there's a present under the tree, and we're opening it in a 4-year span, in a 5-year span. And at the other end of us opening that gift might be a PlayStation 5 in this case in reality, or might be an NBA championship, might be a competent franchise that is constantly in contention in the Eastern Conference. That's where I think this Bulls team is heading to. That's what I hope to see this team heading to. And I hope each and every one of you joins us this entire 2020-2021 NBA and Chicago Bulls season as we break down all the games and all the major news for our favorite team in the association at the United Center, your Chicago Bulls. Let me know your thoughts, though. How do you think this NBA season will play out? Who do you have winning the championship? Who comes out of the East? Who comes out of the West? How do you think the Bulls season fares out? I actually have a little bit of dinero on Patrick Williams as Rookie of the Year. They have some good odds. I'll talk about it throughout the entire week heading into the weekend. Some of my picks and thoughts for the entire NBA season. But I want to hear yours. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. The show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. That'll do it for us on this edition of Sports from the Couch here on Mercado Airwaves. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Don't forget, you can follow us all over the universe. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike M Media, Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. The show's on Twitter at Couch Sports Talk. Like, rate, review, and shares wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. You can become a producer of the show, patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, the home of our interviews with athletes and celebrities that you could get ad-free and before anybody else. That's patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. We have swag, guys, at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Come play video games with us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves. And keep up to date with everything we're doing on the podcast network, from the True Crime Show, the Pop Culture Show, all our interviews, and everything in between. Follow us on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves. Enjoy all the games. Enjoy your holidays. Please be safe. Take care of each other. We will see you next time here on Sports from the Couch on the Mercado Airwaves Network. I'm Mike Mercado.